Good afternoon and welcome to our February Fireside Chat. It is entitled The Future of Work and HR Trends. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Mount St. Vincent University is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This treaty is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Maliseet peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. We pay respect to the custodianship of this land and to the elders past and present. We are all treaty people. Good afternoon. My name is Nick Deal. I am an assistant professor here in the Department of Business and Tourism at Mount St. Vincent University, and I specialize in strategic human resource management and community leadership. I will be your moderator for this event. I would like to welcome everybody who is on this call, especially our strategic human resource management students in Professor Jeff Young's Business 4418 Strategic Human Resource Development class, as well as all of our students, Learning Passport and otherwise. This session is an approved Learning Passport activity and is being recorded and will be available on the MSVU Business and Tourism YouTube page shortly. Now in its second year, the Fireside Chat series features online addresses by high-profile entrepreneurs, managers, government officials, political leaders, and CEOs working in business and tourism here in Halifax, in Nova Scotia, in the Atlantic Canadian region, as well as across our country. Presented by the Department of Business and Tourism, these webinars are open to all and are designed to provide exceptional additional learning opportunity for our MSVU Business and Tourism students. And let me say this, it is a privilege to introduce our host this afternoon. Nick Beynon has enjoyed a career in human resources, winning several industry awards like Rising Star, HR Award of Excellence, and an Innovation Award. However, in the interest of finding a new challenge and something very different, he found an exciting opportunity with CPHR Nova Scotia in a role that allowed him to play a more influential role in the HR profession. A few years ago, he accepted the position as Chief Executive Officer of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources of Nova Scotia. Since then, he has expanded the influence of HR within the province and beyond Nova Scotia into the whole Atlantic Canadian region, creating CPHR Atlantic. Bringing together the four provinces has increased the quality and quantity of offerings to our region and the collective CPHR brand and designation. Here's how our session will unfold this afternoon. Our host, Nick Beynon, has prepared a talk on the future of work and HR trends. In just a few moments, he will deliver this and we're looking forward to it. After that, we'd like to take an opportunity to discuss the CPHR accreditation agreement that the Department of Business and Tourism has recently signed with CPHR Nova Scotia and how this benefits you as students now and will in your future career in HR. Finally, we will invite you to interact with our host and myself by opening up the chat box for any questions that you have regarding the future of work and HR trends, as well as our accreditation agreement. Without further ado, it is my special privilege to welcome Nick Beynon, and Nick is going to talk to us here talking about the future of work and HR trends. Nick, I turn it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. I just want to confirm I am not muted and you're seeing my deck.
It is wonderful.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let me just rearrange my windows, get some of these out of the way. Perfect. Thank you, Nick. That was wonderful. Well, good afternoon. I'm so honored to be invited here by Nick. Nick Deal has been such a huge advocate for the HR community, the designation, the HR Association, us, CPHR Nova Scotia, and we're so excited to be here today to speak with all of you. If you're here today, then chances are you're playing a critical role in the future of Nova Scotian workplaces. or you will at least in the very near future. You're probably eager to gain some of the trends and insights that we'll be sharing with you today, probably from looking for more than what you currently see, and certainly I'm going to bring that. We, CPHR Nova Scotia, intend to offer, as I said, exactly that. We've collected trends and insights into the future of work from surveying over 6,600 participants, majority of who are leaders in HR, originating from 113 countries. But let's dive into the agenda. If this will change on, there we go. Okay, so there was an intro, so I'll just compliment that. It was a very thorough intro, but I'll do a quick little intro for myself, a bit about the organization. And then next, I'd like to quickly acknowledge just like life, it's all a journey. And as such, individuals, departments, organizations, we're all in different places in the HR continuum. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. HR is as wide as the ocean, as demonstrated by the 44 competencies that CPHR Nova Scotia has established for our profession. However, we have prioritized three key areas to focus on. You can try to tackle, dozens of priorities, but you have to ask yourself if they're really priorities if you've got over a dozen, but not really, right? So we'll just stick to three as it's realistic, achievable, and focused. Interweaved into the intro and outro is just a little bit about the organization, CPHR Nova Scotia. And we're not here to sell anything. In fact, we're a not-for-profit. So we're only really here to help impart the collective knowledge and experience from our profession. And then lastly, I need to recognize the contributions of two of our white papers for the structure, stats, and information that really led to the creation of this presentation. You can see the covers of these right here on the deck. But again, I'll talk about more of those in the future. All right, so that's me, as you can see. I think I'm wearing the exact same shirt, actually. That's hilarious. So just a little bit about my experience. I wasn't, my first role wasn't CEO of the association. In fact, a lot of the associations aren't always led by someone that actually does it. So I did do it. I am a practitioner, not just a leader of the organization. So for years, I groomed myself with some great leadership and great organizations through Rona, Air Miles, Admiral Insurance, and now CPHR Nova Scotia. All of those led to, progressive roles and various different experiences, and I'll lean on those as I go through the presentation, try to give you not just the survey results, but give you some real tangible examples. And those are probably the ones that you'll retain. So hopefully they're memorable. All throughout my career, though, I always played a role in the HR community. It was always important for me to not just hold down a job, but to give back. As so many of my learnings and my successes came from those around me, and the things that I learned, I wanted to give back to the community. So I've always been involved in either the provincial, the national, or regional committees, or just generally anywhere in the community outside my workplace. But that sort of led to me becoming the CEO of the association. So through all the volunteering and advocating, I got so heavily involved. At one point, I was on the board of directors with the association, and we lost our CEO, and that was an opportunity when I was really engaged with my current job, and things were going well. And all this HR community work was on the side of my desk. It wasn't the priority, and I saw this position as like, holy moly, this is a chance to do it full time, and get paid to do it. That's a bonus too. So really, our role is really helping bring the HR community together and advance the HR community, and that's what I do in my day job now, as opposed to just evenings and weekends, which is pretty cool. That's it for me, but a little bit about CPHR if you're not familiar. Actually, let me go up a little higher. So there's a worldwide federation. Okay, so there's the World Federation of People Management Associations, which we belong to, and there's 600,000 members around the world. And then below that, there's a continental. It's a North American HR Management Associations. That's 350,000. And then below that is CPHR Canada. So there's a national, which is 27,000 members across Canada. And then there's Atlantic. When Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PI, and Newfoundland and Labrador come together, there isn't an Atlantic entity, but we use that brand anytime we come together and try to strengthen the region. So the Atlantic's 2,000, and about half of that is Nova Scotia. I think that's enough on that one. I'm going to skip that. So I think it's worthwhile just talking about what our mission is, just so you can better understand the presentation that you're about to see. And I'll skip the Canada one, but the Nova Scotia, our mission is really to bring HR professionals together. Sitting down with our board a couple of years back, we thought, what's our biggest strength? What's the greatest thing we can do? And we realized that the unique advantage that we had was the connections. We were sort of a hub for the HR community, and so we need to leverage that strength. And we do so through championing the profession, learn and grow, accelerate workplace excellence, and with the ultimate goal of making this province a place that has the best workplaces, either attracting new workplaces or creating existing workplaces into better ones. And it's obviously that's a bit indirect. We don't control what workplaces do, but if we've done everything that we were supposed to do in strengthening the profession, strengthening the individuals, then in turn, they will make their workplaces even better. Just, I won't spend much time on this, but just a heads up on who are members, because this surprises some people. We tend to be on the larger side. Again, we have 1,000 HR professionals in the province. They come from every walk of life. We have got public sector, private sector, large, medium, small. Obviously, if they have an HR professional, they're on the larger side of things. But my estimate, this probably represents roughly 2/3 of the HR profession as being members within Nova Scotia, that is, with our association. Our members are mostly in leadership positions. They refer to what we would refer to as medium to large. Half of our members have their designation, slightly more than a quarter have formally begun the process, and less than a quarter have not. They might be thinking about it, we're not sure, but they haven't formally started. So who's our average member? Our average member is a female from an organization of over 1,000 staff in a senior management position with the designation. Oops, I'm going too fast. Yeah, I think that's okay, actually. I'm going to skip this. As I mentioned, I just want to call out that, in different organizations are different planes across this HR continuum. I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on what the different steps, the different ends of that spectrum are. So I would argue about a decade ago, or at least more than a decade ago, a lot of HR departments within organizations were, sadly, an administrative function. They used to actually be referred to as the personnel department, but that goes back probably 30, 40 years. But as an administrative function, their priority was around its own needs and processes. There was limited strategic impact or analytical insight. This would be on the far left, the transactional side. But today, leading organizations have moved beyond that through operational and strategic, and addressing the broader question of how HR can explicitly support the business. According to these results, a strategic long-term perspective built on business acumen, competency, and innovation, as well as HR expertise, is critical. Where HR struggles the most, again, is the necessary use of data and analytics, and a sound skill of capability to forecast based on them. This pandemic has certainly forced many of us into that strategic space of rethinking the workplace and work culture. However, as we come out of the pandemic, some organizations are reverting back to the old ways. Transformational HR departments are exploiting this as an edge over the competitors and an opportunity to increase engagement and loyalty with their staff. Now, every single one of us in this meeting is sitting somewhere along this spectrum. And we believe it's helpful to preface this before we go any further. We also want to acknowledge that there's no right or wrong place in the continuum. You are where you are because that's where you need to be in the exact moment. And many of us desire to shift to the right, but that needs to happen when all the right things are in place. Bottom line, there's a continuum, and that you need to keep this in mind as we move forward with these 3 areas of focus. So let's dive into them. So the future of management priorities. This is a white paper that was released just a few months ago. And it's data, data, data. There's so much data out there, and HR professionals love data. Okay, not really. We'd much rather deal with people than numbers. I think a lot of people know that. At least I would speculate 80% of us in HR have gravitated towards it because we like business, we don't like the numbers, we like the people, and this has a bit of that balance. But shying away from those numbers is a painful truth we as a function are quickly shedding, as we're usually sitting on heaps of endless insights waiting to be revealed. Well, this presentation is based on data, 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 or more specifically, the future of people management priorities. It's a white paper that we, CPHR Nova Scotia, contributed to, facilitated, and participated in. CPHR Nova Scotia through CPHR Canada is a highly involved and engaged member of, as I just mentioned, the WFPMA, the World Federation of People Management Association. Through them, we partner with BCG, or Boston Consulting Group, who I'm sure many of you have heard of. BCG partners with leaders in business to tackle some of the most important challenges and capture the greatest opportunities. Through this partnership, we have helped facilitate a survey on the future of people management priorities, as mentioned before, across 113 countries and over 6,600 participants. To supplement the quantitative findings, the BCG interviewed more than 30 people leaders at organizations around the world. I'm sure you can appreciate how valuable this report is to the HR profession. It's huge. There's so much insight there. And just again, for this short time I have with you, I'm going to focus on 3 areas, which I think are the most critical. So our members did, as CPHR members across Canada, include Nova Scotia, we saw incredible uptake on this survey, and all CPHR members were the direct beneficiaries of this transformational discoveries. I really need to give BCG recognition, as they were valuable partners in this, and so much of their work has helped build the structure and content of the information I'm about to present. So credit where credit's due. All right, let's jump in. Digitization. Most companies are endeavoring to digitize their HR departments, beyond just having an HR information system, or HRIS for short. People are accustomed to streamlined digital experiences and intuitive interfaces in their personal technology. So they want modern solutions at work as well. By taking deliberate and proactive steps to help build digital capabilities and skills, HR can fulfill its mandate of becoming a true partner to business units. A bragging moment, if you will. In my last workplace at a large 10,000 plus employee worldwide insurance company, we found a way to digitize the onboarding experience. And I was skeptical at first, but the results were incredible. So many surprises came out of it, actually. So all of the onboarding materials we had, they were all completed online in advance of their first day. It sounds a whole lot better than spending, as many of us do, your first day reading through an employee handbook or filling out benefit documents. That's not too fun, is it? You know, I just picture you coming home. Hey, hon, how was your first day? Oh, it was fantastic. I filled out paperwork all day. It's not, you know, this is the all-time high. The first day, you know, chances are, if you've hired someone, they're so excited to get started. They're so excited to start, and then first day, paperwork, handbook, read, don't bother me. That's not how you want to start. Most employees, they want to prove right from the get-go they can hit the ground running, but right away you're starting with breaks. Even more shocking is that we trialed self-administered online training even before they started. And to my surprise, this is the one I was really surprised about. The vast majority came to work on the first day having completed their, and I have to use air quotes, unpaid self-paced online homework. They already had a solid foundation before training even began. I should note, these weren't your 6-figure positions where you likely have a staff that borders on workaholic. No, this is like frontline positions, you know, paying a decent wage, but obviously they're just as keen as anyone else to get started with their best foot forward. I'm still shocked by it, but round after round, after hire, we continue to see people showing up, having completed all their onboarding. And on day one, they weren't hitting the brakes. They were hitting the ground running. They've already done everything needed to do. They got a good foundation for their knowledge as far as how to complete the job. And we look like heroes across the organization. This is in Canada, and it was something that we actually shared internationally with our other sister companies. And they were as surprised as we were, and they embraced it. Continue on with digitization. Digitization is a key trend that changes the world of work completely, including the realm of people management. Perhaps not surprisingly, most HR departments are struggling to unleash the potential of data and digital solutions along the employee lifecycle. Now, this finding was remarkably consistent across our analysis. No matter where respondents are located across industries and around the world, they're all struggling to digitize their HR departments. Again, if you think about your typical HR person, they'd rather be they'd rather be dealing with people than data or digitizing. And in fact, there's a lot of instances where IT is doing this in their organizations, and it's so important. If you don't have the skill set as an HR department, sit down with your IT department. You, the HR department, should be leading this. It shouldn't be something that you rely on your IT department. In fact, if they do it, they're probably not going to do it right. It's going to be focused on the wrong things, less on the people and probably more on the process or the experience. So compounding this challenge is the fact that employees are accustomed to streamlined digital experiences and intuitive interfaces in their personal technology. So they want modern solutions at work as well. Now, accordingly, topics such as digital, AI, cloud, and robotics in HR, or HR, IT, architecture, and operations, and people analytics and reporting. Now, all these categories, they rank among the most urgent priorities in our survey, according to the respondents. Now, I'll show you all of the priorities at the very end. In our private lives, we've become accustomed to receiving tailored recommendations for movies and products. And honestly, for me, occasionally it can be helpful. More often, I'm scared by it. Just the other day, actually, it was beneficial. I was looking for a product for my son, and I put it in my cart. I didn't complete the transaction. I slept on it. The next day, I woke up. And I don't know, maybe they tricked me, I don't know, but I was appreciative of it. The next day there was an ad. I was on a website, maybe looking at a hockey score or something. And on the website it said 10% off that product you were just looking at. Okay, you got me. That was beneficial. But these are things that we're not doing in the workplace, and we're getting so accustomed to it. In fact, in our professional lives, we continue to ask the employees repeatedly for the same basic information. Please put your name, address, date of birth, etc., all in this new employee form. Now do it again on the benefits form. Now do it again on this payroll form. Oh, and again, one last time for the EAP program. If this doesn't sound familiar yet, it will soon enough. So on the flip side, how many of your staff answer the same questions from staff week after week? The one I remember having to learn when I first started is what the difference was between a revocable beneficiary and a non-revocable. I knew, high level that one was sort of solidified and one wasn't, but the details I didn't know. I think I've answered this question probably 100 times in my career now. Now you think about what a waste of time that is for me, to answer that question again and again and again. Does it excite me? Does it energize me? No, it sucks the energy out of me. I mean, I'm happy to help, of course, but it's not going to get me revving and excited as opposed to a question I've never thought of before. And so think about that. Think about the HR department that's repeatedly answering the same questions, staff that have to, different staff. Hopefully it's not the same staff asking the same question every time. But there's the level of frustration there. And some leading organizations, they're starting to use AI and chatbots to answer these questions. And guess what? Again, I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong in this instance. I thought that sounds awful. We want people to have to engage with people. I feel like I'm the bank manager 50 years ago trying to say, I don't want ATMs in my branch. It's my people that count. And of course, people do count, but not for the repetitive stuff. Put people where they can add value. The ATM can take care of those basic transactions, and you've got the staff in the branches to take care of the more complicated stuff. Same thing with your HR department. So guess what? Employees don't mind. Why? Because they're getting an instant answer versus waiting for your staff member to catch up on their other emails or other tasks or get out of their meetings. Now, one company actually introduced a bot assistant for all staff. And this was like an assistant for all staff. The AI assistant was nicknamed Moon. Now, Moon can help the new employees adapt to their new teams. The Moon can provide feedback for their development. It identifies skills gaps through regular quizzes and training. Moon can also provide information about sick leave, vacations, salaries. And unlike me and other HR professionals, Moon can do this 24/7. I'm not answering these questions at 3 in the morning. Moon can also measure stress levels, a happiness index to hopefully avoid burnout and much more. And I just got thinking, I don't know the answer to this question, but I started to wonder, geez, I wonder if it can offer constructive criticism too. Managers, my experience, managers usually struggle with that the most. I can just picture them, talking to the employees. Moon wants you to step it up. Don't be mad at me. It's the AI. You can't get mad at me. I could see a lot of managers dangerously hide behind that. Hopefully it's not giving constructive criticism, at least not in lieu of a real conversation with their supervisor. That's more of a joke than anything. Data is the foundation for objective decision-making processes. Helena, I'm going to butcher this last name, Gotchling. She's the CHRO of the Royal Bank of Canada. She notes that the bank is implementing new surveying capabilities to provide just-in-time analytics and insights for the leadership team. And they're moving to surveying employees more frequently than the historical rate of once per year, which everyone has proven doesn't work. Anytime you get those engagement survey scores, that's how the employees were feeling on November 1st, that one day that you asked that survey. Could have been a good day, could have been a bad day. But she goes on to say, a good foundation of data and an understanding of analytics is the basis for everything, and I couldn't agree more. Let's move on to the second area of talent. Now this one is large, so talent, I had to break it up into several parts. So the first part I'm going to deal with is talent management. Strategic workforce planning sets HR up to identify talent needs associated with the organization's future goals and establish a strategy to ensure the organization has the right mix of talent, technologies, and employment models to reach these goals. We need to look both inwards and outwards. Outwards, you hear it in the news all the time. Nova Scotia is growing. Well, I think it was just, I want to say it was a couple of weeks, but maybe it was more, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, we surpassed the 1 million mark. Incredible. How are we doing this? You think by having babies, but that's not the case. The majority of our growth is actually through immigration. And this is despite having a year not that long ago where the borders locked down. Now, if you take out that lockdown year, we've been averaging about 5,000 to 6,000 immigrants the last couple of years. And keep in mind, not all of those 5,000 to 6,000 are entering the workforce. Some of them are school-aged, some of them are senior citizens. Probably the majority are in the workforce, but not all. Meanwhile, on the other side, we've got over 200,000 Nova Scotians who are over the age of 65, and they've either already retired or they will retire soon. There's a big number gap there. And more importantly, there's going to be a lot of knowledge and experience lost from those retirees. And if you don't have a plan to embrace immigration, or even better, to embrace diversity and inclusion, to help level the playing field, you can have a round one of interviews if you're hiring, the first round, where you only interview candidates of a diverse background. I'm going to park the diversity inclusion for a sec because I'm going to come back to that later on, but there's a lot we need to do on that end. Inwards, upskilling, reskilling, and learning and development for your existing staff is going to be so critical. Not going to be, it is critical. And it has been for a long, long time, but probably arguably, not arguably, for sure, now more than ever. Every few months, I hear it in the news. Auto manufacturers, they're all shifting. It's a dramatic shift. For what, 100 years or something, they've been building gas-based cars. They're all moving to electric. They're all electronic. They're moving to electric cars. How are they doing this? Was it just the research team that led this? Was it the marketing team that's preparing to market it to sell? Nope. I think a lot of it has to do with the human resources department. They've got a seat at the table. The research team and marketing team, they can do this all they want, but they don't have staff to build these electric cars. They're going to be a world of pain. So the HR team has said, we need to rebuild our entire workforce, mostly from within. Using one example, GM just announced they'll have 30 new electric vehicles by 2025. In preparation for this, I was like, 2025, that's holy geez, that's 3 years away. That's no time at all. And I can only imagine how much work goes into, designing these models and preparing the assembly line for it, let alone having the staff there ready to pump out 30 new electric vehicles in 3 years. So in order to support this, they put both new hires and seasoned veterans, both of them, into classrooms, and the classroom has become their primary job. So these employees today are not returning any investment. They're investing in the future. They're spending their day job in a classroom with the intention of graduating at the end of this year with new technical skills needed to support the company's new priority, aka electric vehicles. So overall, I'm sure you've heard it's a seller's market, and this is, for an HR department, this is a nightmare. It makes our job much more difficult. But on the flip side, there's always a silver lining. It makes us better at what we do. When it's buyer's market, it's a lot easier. You can ask anyone in recruiting. It's beyond painful right now. You either have no one applying, or the applicants are grossly underqualified, and we are, really forced to think outside the box, come up with new methods and new sources. Yeah, it's a real challenge. And if hiring managers are hiring people to replace a lost employee, boy, I wonder how badly they wish they could go back in time and do things differently. Perhaps, save the employment relationship, engagement, or whatever the issue was that led to the loss of that employee. I don't think too many managers are sharing the old prehistoric toxic view that everyone is replaceable. I remember hearing a manager proudly state everyone's replaceable, and he said, even me. He said, you're replaceable, and even I'm replaceable. Well, not anymore. There was a talent war. It's over, and the talent has won. So we need to adjust. Keep what you've got, keep them engaged, and hire people differently now. So speaking of hiring people differently now, that's the second part of the talent category. So talent acquisition. So the ever-intensifying competition for talent, especially digital talent, it requires a state-of-the-art approach to finding, managing, and cultivating high-potential employees. Workers increasingly expect customized, flexible career paths that employers may have difficulty in providing. My previous workplace, we conducted recorded video interviews. Again, this is something I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm skeptical. And again, I'm so happy that we gave it a try, and I was very wrong. So candidates would self-facilitate these interviews. They would go on, some of them past midnight, it might be 1 a.m, and they're using a tool that would give them a question. Then they'd have 30 seconds to think about their answer, and then it would start recording. And so they would load up these recordings into our app, and then our recruiters would come on board and they'd watch them. You know, this is incredible for our recruiters. I can't tell you how much frustration they had playing phone tag with people. People don't pick up their phones anymore. You know, you have to text them before you call now. And even when it comes to jobs, people don't pick up their phones. So our recruiters are wasting their time playing phone tag. And in addition, they don't have to sit through a dud interview. I've been there, and you know, everything looked great on paper. I had a quick pre-screen on the phone, and I thought, this is a solid candidate. It's going to be a great use of the hiring manager's time. I sit down, and you know, 5, 10, 15 minutes in early on, I know the hiring manager's thinking to himself, what did Nick do? This is such a waste of my time. And I'm spending a little bit of time. I'm focused on the interview, hoping to salvage it, but there's a little bit of my brain that's going, okay, get ready to say, I'm so sorry. None of this is done when you've got recorded video interviews. The recruiter just sits down, and at their leisure, they start listening and watching these recordings. And if they are a good use of the hiring manager's time, they forward it to the hiring manager, and they can watch it when they want. So, you know, there's innovative things that you can do, and people aren't opposed to these. Again, especially digital talent. They're happy to facilitate this on their own time. You know, for me, I'd rather do an interview at, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning when I'm fresh and sharp. Some people want to do it at midnight. It's dealer's choice, which people do appreciate. Now, on the other hand, there is the emergence of the gig economy, and it's challenging traditional workforce models. And yet most employers are not equipped to manage a hybrid workforce of contractors, gig workers, temp workers, traditional employees. In fact, many unionized workplaces have collective bargaining agreements that outright prevent it. They have these CBAs that say you can only hire full-time employees. This is a huge detriment to these unionized workplaces. Now, these challenges, they raise the stakes for managing top talent and having a comprehensive talent ecosystem in place that provides a wide variety of accessible talent pools to meet the organization's needs. This has only increased, as I'm sure you're all thinking, what about the pandemic? Forget the gig economy. It was already happening with the gig economy. The pandemic has just doubled down on it. So a career path is about building experience, whereas career development should aim to provide talent with a wide range of unique experiences that enable you to be successful and maximize existing talent. These collective experiences should be the new definition of career, rather than striving for your boss's job. Employees are indeed interested in different experiences. In partnership with BCG, we found that 2/3 of workers worldwide are willing to retrain for new jobs. Again, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have guessed that. I believe steady Eddie, most of us, we like what we're doing and we don't want to change. 2/3 have said, my hand is up, I'm happy to change. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I know there's such rapid change now, and people, I guess they're just more adaptive than ever, and they want to keep themselves alive, and they don't want to be in a job that is going to be obsolete soon enough. And so, anyways, the numbers are what they are. 2/3 have said yes, absolutely. Sorry, just lost my train of thought. So at the same time, HR must strategically identify skills that the company will need in the future, along with developmental approaches to close any gaps. That necessity points to strategic workforce planning, upskilling, reskilling, and learning and development, and leadership behaviors and development as priority topic areas. And again, I'll show you all the priorities at the end. Organizations need to build a learning culture because your past experiences alone are not enough to survive in the future. You always have to keep on learning. A special focus on leadership behaviors and development will be essential to enable this continuous transformation and to empower future leaders to steer and successfully manage their business in an increasingly complex world. Diversity and inclusion, so critical now. Wait, that's not right. It's always been critical. All that's changed is how painfully obvious it is now when it's absent. The world has been completely uprooted, thankfully, with social movements from Me Too, Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ2IA+. So much good will come of this, even beyond the workplaces. Back to the heading, diversity and inclusion. I must share one of my favorite quotes. And I can't remember where I heard this. It was a radio show, but they said, diversity is a stat. Inclusion is a feeling. I'll let that sink in for a second. Diversity is a stat. Inclusion is a feeling. Now think of a time where you were present, but you didn't belong. It was awful, right? I used to live in Toronto, and I played what we called old boys rugby, which basically means we went out and we did a little bit of sport, a little bit of social time, and we all had day jobs. We were older, obviously. And so we weren't willing to play this sport where you could easily do some damage to your body. We weren't willing to break our leg to score. When I moved to Nova Scotia, I found a rugby club here, and I showed up to the practice, the first practice they had in the year. And disappointingly, I didn't even get out of the car. I looked at the pitch, and I was easily twice the age of everyone. And I didn't, sitting in the car at that moment, I didn't think of myself as an old person, but I looked out to the crowd and I thought, nope, I didn't belong. We've all had a different but similar experience, and it's a terrible thing. Of course, we want all staff to feel like they belong. It's a desire we all have, but it still feels like a choice, an obvious one, granted, but that choice is rapidly fading away. Now, according to CNN Money, in the US, 72% of baby boomers are white, while 56% of millennials are white. In the US, I bet there are a lot of people ignorant or afraid of the reality that they will, as white people, will be the minority not before too long. I'm sure in this meeting, I'm preaching to the choir, and you all got on that train long before I started moving it. Not that I'm moving it, but moving this topic in this presentation. So what do we do now? Well, Sir Richard Branson was once quoted saying, "It's so simple but brilliant idea," something I incorporate into a lot of what I do. He said, take care of your employees and they will take care of your business. A lot of senior leaders will focus on the business, focus on the bottom line. His thought is reverse, right? Take care of the employees and everything else will get taken care of. It's as simple as that. And I don't think at the time when he said that, he was focused at all on diversity and inclusion. But I have no doubt it's incorporated in the simple idea of taking care of your employees. So put them in the center. If you put them in the center of every decision you make, does it support our staff? Does it enable our staff? All of your staff, right? Not just the men, not just the physically able, not just the white. People who look like me need to own their privilege and realize that if this was a sprint, it wasn't a fair one. I know I probably started 10 or 20 meters ahead of some of my peers because of what I look like, who my parents are, and all types of other things that are outside of anyone's control. On day one, an employee starts. They walk in. There's this beautiful mosaic that is your staff. Is it being celebrated? Are all the differences being celebrated? Are you leveraging the strengths in the differences in a collaborative effort? And collaboration is a path to success. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So I report to the board of directors at CPHR Nova Scotia, and more specifically the chair. And my current chair, she works at WCB. They've done some transformative work with cultural competencies, starting with their leaders. And if you're not familiar with cultural competency, then let me just simply say it's the ability to understand and interact effectively with people from other cultures. Okay, so it's just getting smarter culturally, basically. So cultural competence is important because without it, our opportunity to build those relationships is impossible. Instead, we'll coexist with people we don't understand, thereby creating a higher risk for misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and biases, things that can all be avoided. Quick little side story for you. The last organization I worked at, I traveled down to our US sister company, and this was in Virginia, actually probably the birthplace of Confederacy. And I was amazed. I went down thinking diversity and inclusion is not going to be achieved here. It's going to be a white office, and it was almost 50% white, 50% African American. And I thought, boy, was I wrong. You know, I'm sitting in the office, and it's all mixed up, and it's wonderful. Everyone's engaging with everybody. And I thought, this is amazing. This is in Virginia. This is the birthplace of Confederacy. Boy, was I wrong. Don't judge a book by its cover. And then lunch came. It was 12 o'clock. I went down to the cafeteria, and I grabbed my food, and then I was like, okay, where am I going to sit? And I looked to the left of the room, all the African Americans on one side, looked to the right, all the Caucasians on the other. It's like, what the heck just happened? So, you know, there was like this forced diversity inclusion while they're on the clock, but off the clock. No way. We're not interacting. We're going to go to our separate corners. And boy, did I have a problem with this. I really struggled with it. And that's a longer story I won't get into today, but yeah. So I do want to talk about, just in the past fall, we actually hosted a diversity and inclusion conference. It was the first time, first off, it was the first time we had anything in person in a long time. This was an in-person conference, which was pretty cool. It was also the first time we ever had a full day dedicated to diversity and inclusion. Now, we had someone that is probably famous to many of you, a super talented individual by the name of April Howe. She is the Nova Scotian Deputy Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture, and she spoke on unconscious bias. And I have to share one of my biggest takeaways from her session. It was a fantastic session, I should say that too. One of the biggest takeaways for me is that we have to live with these unconscious bias. I don't know about you, but I tend to be a fixer. If there's a problem, I want to get in there and fix it. Well, I learned, sadly, in this one, thanks to April, you can't fix it, at least not to the point where you no longer have unconscious biasness. The big hint, of course, is the word unconscious. You're not aware of it. So the only fixing I could do is be aware of it. You know, mitigate it from your processes, your leaders, and yes, even yourself. And many of your staff try to self-mitigate themselves in a really sad way, actually. So we all have two coats in their closet. This is another takeaway April shared with us. We all have two coats in our closet. We have our office one and our home one. We're probably not the exact same person at each of those. And certainly, if we're aware of unconscious biases, we tend to leave those at home. You know, we put our coat on from the closet for our office coat. We'll leave that thing at home. So as an example, I have a dear friend who has a very heavy Cape Breton accent. Nicest guy ever, smartest guy ever, but he leaves this Cape Breton accent at home. It's completely non-existent at work. Why? He doesn't want anyone making an assumption based on his accent. He believes that there's a bias that if you sound that way, you're not nearly as educated or as intelligent. It's sad. These are biases we need to be aware of and we consciously need to curb. We all have warm, fuzzy statements on our websites, job boards, all in an attempt to tick the box of attracting a diverse candidate pool. We can't stop at a well-worded statement. There's got to be outreach. We need to reach out to community organizations, help level the playing field, be mindful of the privileges afforded, again, to people that look like me, you know, straight, white, male, married with kids. Every factor I just shared is a privilege that affords me an unfair advantage over others that lack these privileges. And again, one of the easiest ways to help fix that when you're recruiting, as I already mentioned, you know, have rounds of interviews, and you have one round of interviews. It's the first where you prioritize a diverse audience. Maybe these are people you wouldn't normally interview. Bring them in. give them a fair chance. In fact, give them the first chance. And it just makes sense. Businesses are more profitable, more successful when diversity and inclusion is incorporated. How am I doing that time? 55. Okay. So still on the theme of talent, and this I'll be quicker on this one, health and wellness. Increasingly, companies need to be employee-centric and empathetic in order to keep employees engaged. This is particularly true in the post-pandemic new reality, where many workers worldwide have reassessed their personal priorities and changed their relationship to work in response to an extremely stressful 2 years. There's a real risk of employees disengaging from work if they no longer find it meaningful. And we're seeing this in the US with the great resignation, as they call it. Organizations must listen to their workers and understand how their needs and expectations may have changed. And sorry, if you haven't heard of the Great Resignation, there's hundreds of thousands of US employees who have quit. And they're calling it the Great Resignation. And it's unique because they haven't quit for a better job. They don't have a job. They've reassessed everything because of the pandemic and they have just quit. They're no longer working. A new addition to this year's analysis is health and safety. And it offers some good news. Survey participants identified it as one of the most important HR topics, not surprisingly given the pandemic, but also as one where current capability is strong. Okay, so we see it as a priority and we've got the capability. And Canada is actually a leader in this regard in the survey when you look at the other countries. Most HR leaders realize that even after COVID-19 has passed, health and safety threats to employees will not disappear, meaning that this topic will require ongoing vigilance. Speaking for myself, I have a very open style, and it's opened up many conversations I never thought I'd have as a working professional. Nick's heard this story already, but I'll share it again. I once had an employee come to my office. They shut the door. They took their shirt off. They asked me about an opinion about a mole on their chest. It's a weird example, but that's the level of openness that we'll need. Of course, there's personal boundaries. You have to protect some of that, but I just use that weird example as a demonstration of the level of openness that we need to have as staff. These are things that my parents never saw. If they were mad or disgruntled, they kept their mouth shut and they just, they let things bottle up until they exploded or imploded. We can't have that now. Now, employees want to talk and managers need to listen. All right, last topic, the future of work. So the future of work will consider that lifestyle and location often comes before work and work needs to be adjusted. As the pace of change in business accelerates, companies are pushing HR to take a more active role in redefining how and where work gets done. The response to COVID-19 accelerated progress in this area, but companies still face challenges in shaping the future of work. Initiatives such as redesigning the physical work environment, implementing a new organizational structure, and enabling transformational change have traditionally not fallen under the scope of HR, but today they increasingly do. Unfortunately, many departments do not have a strong capability in this area. So unlike the health and safety, this is a high priority, but not a strong capability. Accordingly, they must focus on topics such as organizational development and design, agile principles, smart work, and change management capabilities. So hybrid workplaces. Besides the obvious cost effectiveness, i.e. less office space, less equipment, it's been proven that if staff have the freedom to work from wherever it suits them best, it can drastically increase their output. Before COVID, I'd say most managers did not prescribe to that. They thought if they could work wherever they want, whenever they want, they're going to be sloppy, lazy, they won't work as well, at least not as efficiently. With tech companies, employees get the best of both worlds. Connect and brainstorm with colleagues, either a tech day or a day in the office. Plus, they can work independently with greater efficiency while working at home or even the beach. My greatest concern and attention will be on culture moving forward. I've always believed that your workplace culture is so important and can position you to be at a competitive advantage, but it is a far more difficult thing to do in a virtual world, to impart that culture on your staff. Thus, most are going hybrid, not 100% virtual. So 4-day work week. Microsoft, a couple of years ago, in in Japan, they made headlines. Actually, it was in, a couple of years, 2019. They tested a 4-day work week and they saw 40% productivity boost. And similar to the hybrid workplace, they saw massive costs on savings in the facilities. Rights to disconnect. We're all guilty of working out of hours. It's clear to your team that you don't expect them. Sorry, is it clear to your team that you don't expect them to work outside of working hours? The stress of being unable to detach from work could contribute to mental and physical illness among employees, which could be costly and problematic for employers and the government in long term. I've tried explaining to my team that they don't need to respond when I'm working outside of hours. And then I finally realized that the best method for me, so here's a little takeaway for everyone, utilize your electronic technology. So I use Outlook and there's a delay function. I can set it to not send. So I can say, I'm working at 10 o'clock at night and I can say, delay sending until 8:17 in the morning. And if you do that, just make sure to sprinkle them, choose different times. So it's not at 8:17, they get 5 emails from you. Agile principles, a set of principles permitting quick adaptation to a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, as well as faster project completion. For example, through sprints and enhanced product development. The work is in the thinking, not the typing. Brainstorming, talking, even goofing around with your team, but that's all part of it. Sometimes the best ideas and solutions come not from constant head down coding, but from letting go. It's not fingers on keyboards that count, it's heads in the game. Smart work, a new model of work that uses technology to improve performance, increases flexibility, enhance independence, and thus heighten employee satisfaction. And last but not least, change management capabilities. It's the maximization of support for holistic organizational changes and major transformations by ensuring employee buy-in, readiness, and engagement by enabling leaders to navigate challenging situations. Now, here's some stats I'm going to throw at you. The first one I want to highlight. So this is polling employees. This comes from our Quebec CRHA white paper. They polled workplaces, they polled employees and organizations. What do you want to see? Employees, the bulk of them wanted full-time remote work. So they wanted 100% virtual, 30%. And this is probably the biggest delta, right? So 38% employees wanted 100% virtual. Only 1% of employers wanted purely virtual. On the employer side, the majority of them wanted some level of hybrid, 52% with hybrid with a minimum requirement for on-site, and 23% wanted hybrid that wasn't as fixed, so it's a bit more variable and inconsistent. So 52% lock it in. You're going to work 3 days at home, 2 days in the office, and there's quite a big spread between what they want in those two categories versus employees. I think where they meet the closest is full flexibility without conditions. The 24% for employees, 8% organizations. Yes, I think some great insights there. As I mentioned, I'm going to share with you all of the priorities. So you can see the current capabilities, low being on the far right and future importance, low being on the bottom. So up in the top right quadrant, these are the highest of importance, but lowest capability. So areas we really need to focus on. And then this is the full list. I'm not going to go through the whole list right now. I don't think we have time, but I'm happy to share this PowerPoint afterwards. And in closing, so just some parting remarks. As I mentioned before, put employees at the center. It's after reviewing all this survey data and interviews and what people managers want and the 4 key areas you need to focus on, I would say this: put employees at the center, continuously listen to them, and collect feedback from employees. To focus HR work on what they really need, upgrade employee journeys, and organize HR workflows from their point of view. Don't do it for yourself, do it for them. Nothing's worse than, here's a process that works for the HR department. It's not going to work. It's got to work for the employees. Individualize career paths and learning opportunities. Shape the future of work, define a smart work strategy, rethink employment options and workforce structure, and foster affiliation by sharpening the organization's purpose and culture to inspire employees. Accelerate in digital, get the IT basics right, focus on digital priorities that make a difference to employees and improve people analytics maturity. Set new paradigms for skills and employees. Dynamically plan the organization's workforce for the future. Build a learning organizations and enhance HR expertise. Transform the people management function. Develop and follow a clear HR and people management strategy with defined principles and priorities. Rethink the target HR organization and transform managers into real people leaders. Companies today must navigate an exceedingly challenging business environment, and strong, proactive people management is the only way to ensure that companies have the right talent in place to succeed. A data-driven, objective approach can help HR leaders allocate scarce resources to the most urgent priorities, which, according to our research, include defining the future of work, achieving digitization, and adopting a comprehensive approach to talent management. By focusing on these areas, HR can equip organizations to thrive regardless of what the future holds. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Did I stop sharing? I don't think I did.
Thank you, Nick. On behalf of the students, faculty, those who are joining us here on this call, thank you, Nick, for providing that very insightful and prospecting look of HR, not only in the present, but certainly in the future. There's a lot here that we can talk about and unpack. I have a question that I would like to segue our conversation about our accreditation program agreement here at the Mount. And so I'm going to set it up here. You've been in industry now for quite some time, and you're at a position now where you're overseeing the Provincial Association of CPHR. We interact with students a lot in the association, but also in the role that I'm in, teaching students HR. And I'm constantly asked about the value of HR to an organization. Now, you've already covered that, but I consistently point to the value of the credential as a starting point for aspiring professionals. So we have a number of students that are on this call that are in their third and fourth year. They're picking away at courses, and they're interested about learning more about the CPHR designation, learning more about an agreement that we have signed. So I guess, what would be your advice to students who are interested in HR as a profession? And if you could maybe work your answer around the CPHR designation in the agreement that we have, that would be cool.
That's I don't know if I can interweave. I'll certainly try.
I don't ask the easy questions, Nick.
No, that's a great question. So I think, let me start off, I'll just warm up to this question by answering the why HR. Now I'm biased. It's not fair for me to answer because I absolutely love what I do. And I think I've had some success because I luckily somehow fell into something that I love. HR, it's funny. It's something that when I first started, we were just starting to get a level of respect, right? Like organizations were starting to see, the good organizations were starting to see value in. Finance has had it all along, right? Everyone has to go to the finance department and I need a budget, I need money. There's always been respect there. Money sort of makes the world go around, as they say. And so when I first started, I don't want to age myself, but just 20-ish years ago, we were inching our way to the table. We were getting there. Again, at the good organizations, there was bad organizations out there that didn't see value in it, and so they didn't treat their staff well, and so they didn't invest in HR. Sadly, there's still companies out there that might have 500 staff and they don't have an HR department, and that just blows my mind. Who's taking care of them? You can't rely on a CEO that is that empathetic of a leader that knows what's going on with 500 staff. And I'm not talking about like taking care of the soft stuff, like making sure that, we celebrate birthdays. That's not what HR does. They're not the birthday party planning department. This is about engaging them to deliver on their full potential, right? Knowing how to do that. I mean, that is something every CEO should want. That is a resource that is so unpredictable and so difficult to nail down. And I guess the CPHR piece comes into play because anyone that with that credential, they've been vetted. They've got two things in place that someone that doesn't have it is lacking. So the two things that they've got is they've got validation that they've got a solid academic foundation, right? So part of our process, step one, it's basically two steps. If I can just simplify the designation as simply as possible, it's two steps. One, you're educated, you've got a foundation. Two, you've got experience. So anyone with the designation goes into that room with the designation. People are going to listen because they know that person that is speaking has those two things under their belt. They've got a fantastic vetted out academic program, such as the one at the Mount. It's a reputable program that achieves all that we would expect it to. Now, we go through a thorough analysis, as Nick would know quite well. We put him through the ringer, made sure he gave us everything we need to make sure that it is we knew it was a reputable university. We weren't aware of whether the program was until we did the full analysis. And it more than achieved 80% of the competency we were looking for. So that's number one. You got that. And then the second piece is you have to have at least 3 years of strategic level HR experience. Okay. And so if you walk into a boardroom with those two things under your belt, you're going to make changes that are going to move the organization in the right direction. I have no doubt the HR team and GM that is rebuilding their workplace from the inside out, they probably have an incredible level of academic background and professional experience.
Perfect. Wow. There's some questions coming in already, Nick, about the
Awesome.
the designation process here and how our program is accredited. So could you speak to the benefit that Mount students have of declaring their major in HR and graduating, and what that means for pursuing a CPHR designation?
Yes, yeah. To do so, I have to walk you through our normal process, because I think that will really highlight how privileged you are in this program once you graduate with the right program and the right grades. So our normal process, anyone with the designation that doesn't go through the Mount, specifically the Bachelor of Business Administration degree, majoring in Strategic Human Resources Management. Outside of that, you have to take 9 courses with us. Okay, so you have to go through and take these 9 courses before you write a very challenging national knowledge exam. It's national, it's done in every single province. And pardon my language, but it beats the snot out of a lot of people. The pass rate is only like 61%, 62%. We've got people that have written it 3 times. We've got rules where if you write it the 4th time, you have to wait a year, and they wait a year and they have to write it again. It's a very challenging exam. Now, the analysis of the Mounts program is basically in the simplest way possible for me to describe. Basically, we're looking to see, are you being assessed on the same material that we would have tested you on? And if the answer is 80% or more yes, then it's accredited. So you get to, as the Mount students in that program, you get to skip 9 courses. You get to skip this extremely stressful exam that a lot of people pay extra money for prep courses, online, in person, various different prep methods, and potentially have to write it multiple times. You get to skip all of that. So the whole, as I said, there's 2 steps. There's an academic and an experience piece. You skip the entire academic piece. Now, it's not instant. One thing, just to get a myth out there, if you graduate, it doesn't mean you're done. We don't know. We need to vet you out first, right? So you have to A, become a member, and then B, you have to send in what we call internally an NKE waiver, which is basically a national knowledge exam waiver form. So you send those 2 things in, you become a member, you complete the waiver, which includes some fees, and then we confirm. We talk to the Mount, we look at your grades. So you have to have a cumulative marks of 70% or higher. And you have to be graduated in the right year. If you're all in school right now, then you are graduating in the right year, you're good. Once we confirm those things, then you are halfway through. And what we call people that are halfway through when they're done that first step, we call them CPHR candidates. Now, after you accumulate 3 years of experience, professional level experience, then you can apply to have your experience reviewed. And then just like both Nick's on this meeting right now, Nick Deal and myself, then you become full CPHR. We just call it CPHR.
That's fantastic, Nick. Thank you. We have a question from Caitlin, who was asking about becoming more involved. So aside from taking a student membership, which I will say is very beneficial, and there's benefits to students to do that. What else can students do to contribute to CPHRNS and advocacy for the profession in general?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As I said, I think a couple times in the presentation, the role that I want the association to play in the province is one that brings the community together. And what does that mean? That means that the staff aren't doing everything. We're a very small non-for-profit, and we do a lot of work in the province, and we do it through volunteers. So it's absolutely, it's the thing that separates great associations from bad associations. The more involvement and more engagement and more volunteering, the better we will be, and the better the collective will be. So there's lots of different committees that we have. In fact, probably a great opportunity to give a little shout out to Amber McRoberts. I got her last name right? McRoberts? Yeah, perfect. So Amber actually has reached out to us. So we've been engaged with her, and under Nick's, Nick supported her desire to be a bit more involved. She is actually playing the role of campus ambassador at the Mount. And so she's happy to answer a lot of your questions. We haven't trained her fully yet. We're going to meet with her later this month, but she's going to be a useful person. So you can engage with her and see if there's opportunities to help her on campus, or you can just reach out to us and we can find ways to get you more involved. As Nick said, there's advocacy, right? So we're influencing different legislations that are being passed nationally and provincially. Now, some committees we do require the designation level, but that one, for instance, we don't, as long as you've got the skill set and the availability. You could sit on a committee that is potentially influencing how employment insurance looks in the future. Or, it could be more locally. We've got a mentorship program. Maybe you want to play a role in influencing how the mentorship program works. So there's lots of opportunities. I can't share all of them. The best thing I could say is just reach out to, we've got our hello email. It's hello@cphrns.ca. Just reach out to that, and I no doubt we can connect you with the right committee or the right opportunity. And some of them do involve travel. I've been in some, before I was the CEO, I was involved in some national committees that involve travel, which is always pretty exciting when you're getting your career started, to get on a plane and business travel. It's all kind of fun.
Thank you, Nick. That was amazing. We have a couple more questions, but I'm afraid we're running out of time. Patty's asking about the 3 years of professional experience. Is it all directly related to HR, or is there some transferable work, similar work considered? So like in 15, 20 seconds, I hate to do that to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I can do it. So the two requirements from that: it has to be paid work. Okay, it can't be co-op, it can't be a volunteer. It's got to be paid, and it's got to be at least 51% or more in HR. So if you have a role where you do a bunch of things, you do marketing, communications, and HR, as long as 51% or more is HR and it's paid, that's it.
Fantastic. Look, we've run out of time, but I want to thank Nick on behalf of our department, Business and Tourism and Hospitality Management, as well as Mount St. Vincent University. Our HR students, thank you, Nick. Thank you for talking to us about the present and future trends of HR and the possibilities of a rewarding career in the HR field. If you would like to find out more about our accreditation agreement, you can reach out to hello@cphrns.ca. You could also email anyone within our department, and we'd be happy to get that answer to you. But thank you once again. I hope you have a very great rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. This was fantastic.